So I'm having a terrible day so far.
I know. I'm sorry, bro.
All the faith that was restored in me in humanity a few weeks ago
Has
is
been
gone.
stripped.
Is gone. For those out there that you guys all sent on in those books for the class.
The Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, I really appreciate you, but you'll never guess what happened. Someone stole the books. Not even stole them. They swapped them out.
I can't believe, and you have photos of it.
Yeah, someone actually
Took your label.
When I sent them to the school, Easter vacation was like they were going
Spring
out of
break.
school, so no one was going to be there. So they just had like a security guard or whatever, and then they came back this week, and she sent me pictures today. They opened up the box, and it's a bunch of old crap books that aren't for kids.
God.
And someone took the books.
I can believe it because it is about $1,000 worth of Charlotte's Web.
Yeah. I mean, each book was, I think, $7, give or take. And there was 100 books, so $700. And I didn't insure them because I never insure. I should have. That's my fault. But I never insure any of the books I send because who's going to steal books? Apparently somebody
will.
And not only steal them, but then swap them out.
Well, they probably think that then it's not stealing. It's
yeah. Here's a bunch of crap.
Welcome, you delectable dirties, to a new episode of Till the Dirt with Tommy and MJ.
What?
I'm Mercedes. He always gets frustrated, Ryan, if I don't say that I'm Mercedes and this is Tommy.
I just think people would like to know who's actually on
now
the
it's
pod.
easier for me too.
Yeah.
This is good.
Now you've got it straight.
Yeah. By the way, I'm actually sitting on 100 copies of Charlotte's Web in my trunk right now. Really nice condition,
You gonna give me a
great
good
stuff.
deal?
Yeah, real nice deal.
Bargain basement prices.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, man.
Well, Ryan Bailey. First, I want to say how you and I met.
Yeah.
But should I say, we'll get into it. This
Yeah,
is Ryan
yeah.
Bailey. You guys know him and love him from So Bad It's Good.
Yeah.
With Ryan Bailey. And the first time that we met face to face, I
Yeah.
feel like we already knew each other.
Well, the cool thing when I met you at the live show of Zach and Up and Adam, and you came up to me and you said, "I heard your pod. You're good. I like your podcast." And I was like, "No way!" Because I'm a very nervous person by nature, and I was like, "You know who I am?" Because I've watched your show. You're part of Bravo. You're on the
Mount
mountaintop.
Rushmore.
And so I was like, "You know me?"
We just
Because
had
I
that-
would have never. And she knows every time I've seen her since. I'm like. I'm still nervous to ask you on the show, my show. Like I get really weirdly nervous around people that I respect. And now that I don't respect you as much, I can definitely.
That's why I married her.
Yeah.
That's a good icebreaker for a relationship is, show a word or two. I'm sure there's a dusty baseboard molding that, kind of breaks the ice for us.
But we could actually jump in. That's a good start off point. You could be the person to kind of break it up. A couple of pods ago, we had the question of who's on the Mount Rushmore of Bravo celebrities.
Yeah.
The non-housewife?
No, there'd be housewives and non-housewives.
You would have to break that up now.
Yeah.
Like in the
Yes.
old days, it would just be housewives, but now with the proliferation of all the side project, like the side project shows are actually bigger than the show. Like those are the things that really I think are the bread and butter of Bravo,
Yes.
and that's why I think it was like so. It bummed me out when Shahs is not getting revamped in a certain way because I'm like, now is the time because people are so exhausted with the Housewives format in a way. They are Mount Rushmores. There are these huge personalities, but as we see with like Vanderpump Rules and Summer House and things like these, that people have this huge appetite for stories that are not just Housewives.
Yeah.
For stories that are all, and Bravo, whether it be Family Karma, Shahs of Sunset, they have this really... they're a network, I believe, that is trying, and I think they can always try harder, but to show all sorts of stories. And to me, that's what's fascinating. You watch something like Family Karma, and you're like, oh, I can totally understand this. There's a base level of humanity that we all gravitate towards. And I'm like, this is just as good as Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, if not more so, because you sense that these are actual real people with real relationships, even when the cameras go off.
Yeah,
It's
we had
true.
Jesse Lead on our pod, and he was actually the creator of Shahs of Sunset. And he basically just said what you just said, more or less, that you're going to try and find, if you find a good family dynamic, it doesn't matter if they're Polish, Vietnamese, or, lumberjacks. There's always going to be a common ground that people could find. And that's what they're looking for when they watch it. Like,
people recognize that.
I do that too. Yeah.
And that's why if then it is something a little left of center that they're not, like I wasn't aware of, your growing up and like how tight knit your family was. I mean, I knew family, but I was like, able to see it through your eyes. It gives you this whole different perspective. And I think that's where the future of Bravo really lies. And that's why I think shows like yours will keep coming back. Like, I have no doubt in 3 years, there will be a Shahs, some sort of reunion,
100%.
if not sooner. And I think, especially with Peacock, that's the stuff that's so exciting for Bravo fans. But the Housewives thing, it'll always be there. It's ingrained in our culture now, but it's sometimes just not as realistic. And it's, there's almost like a drag show element of it. Right. It's amazing. It's fun, beautiful costuming, but sometimes the reality of the reality isn't there.
Yeah. The escapism is there, but the relatability isn't there. So,
Yes.
for example, one of the hardest things for me to hear are when people say to me, like, my mom and I got together every Sunday night, or the night that we would air, and now we don't get together anymore because we don't have anything except Shahs was our thing.
You destroyed families now. Yes. It's like families have broken up because of Shahs.
No, you hear that,
but
Bravo?
it's very true though. These shows,
yeah.
I mean, these shows are common ground. Like right now, my mom is going through a really bad illness, and she has started watching Vanderpump Rules, so we have something
to talk about.
By the way, we have tons of things to talk about. But she wants to be a part of this. She wants to be a part of the Scandoval. She wants to talk and give her opinions. And it's this really nice moment where it takes us away from anything that's going on in her day with like treatments and stuff like that to just rip on these crazy lunatic men and women,
Yes, it's true.
The same thing with like the Housewives. There's more of a celebrity aspect to them now. Where, like you said, the reality, like, you're not really getting who they are a lot. Where these other shows that you're talking about, you get a little bit more of a representation of who those people are.
Yeah, they're not as media trained. They're not as media savvy. And, you have people like Lisa Rinna and stuff that were actors their whole lives.
Yes.
So they're a character of a character at this point, and they're encouraged to be because we prop them up and celebrate all of their nastiness. And now there's even a new thing. It's like now there's a criminal element in all of this.
Yeah. Yes.
Now it's like, are you really a Housewives show if you're not threatened with going to jail?
Oh my God.
There's no subpoenas.
Yeah, I know. I think that's what you're like, boring season. Nobody went to jail. Nobody stole from the elderly this season. I didn't like this season,
And when you take those same, the other shows, the Family Karmas, the Shahs of Sunset, they know each other. There's a personal element to it. Where most of these housewives really don't know each other.
And they don't hang out off season.
Yeah, so they get cast together. It's real easy
and
to
they show it in the first episode. They'll be like,
Yeah, well, it's always like, what'd you do this summer? It's like what I imagine a football team is like.
Yes.
When they start going back in
Spring
for training and practice, and then they get to be a team.
Yep.
But you want those things where you're like, oh, these people really hang out when the cameras are down.
Yeah.
And that's where all this good stuff happens,
Yeah. And once the cameras are down, that fight's still going on.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. And that's, you're like, oh my God, this is happening. And that's why I think Bravo is really has to be savvy in this day and age, because social media has taken over to such an extreme where the show outside of the show is more exciting than the show. So they need to find a way to put a noose around the social media and either make it a part, but it's so immediate. And sometimes these shows take 8 months to come out, and you've already moved way past that.
And she'll be the first to tell you she was, she's a bedrock from that network, right? But as a pioneer, she was on that network way before the social media. So like they would really clamp down on things. Like you couldn't say this, you couldn't say that. You have to keep everything quiet, and then you can't do it.
You couldn't live your life in real time.
Yeah, it's just very hard to do that now, to put those handcuffs on these people because they are on social media.
Oh, and the proliferation of podcasting, because I can find out something today that'll take 6 months to get on Bravo, potentially.
Yes.
And then Bravo is always having to catch up to what the information, and by the way, there's tons of false information too, which is ridiculous.
Right.
But it is interesting, the whole cycle that has been created, and I always call it the Bravo economy. behind,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
everybody, we're all, myself, I never thought I would be making a living at this. Are you kidding me? Like, no, like, did I
true.
ever grow up as a dude from Kansas and been like, yeah, I'm going to talk about reality shows one day on a I wouldn't know what a podcast was. It didn't exist. Reality shows didn't really exist besides Real World. And now this is what I do every day of my life.
I think that's a great time
You can tell.
Yeah.
And it's-
Calm
and
down,
it's
man.
fun.
Let's go. I just had 2 cups of coffee. Let's do this.
Cousin Zeba got you nice and caffeinated like we
Yeah,
want
sorry
you.
if I'm over talking.
No,
I
you're
get
great.
so excited.
You're
yeah.
great. No, you're here.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
here to talk, bro.
Yeah.
Believe me. Like I hear her enough. Trust me.
Oh, he
By the way-
would love to hear less of me. That's for sure.
That's what I will love about your show, though. I love those opening moments like you just did because you're like, you can just hear the relationship. Like, that's what I'm talking about reality shows. You hear it. You're like, oh, well, that's very real.
Real.
That's exactly. And to me, that's the time. That's how I want to spend my time with people who have real relationships. You're like, oh, yes, that reminds me of real relationships in my life. And there's like a comfortability to listening where you immediately trust you guys, where a lot of podcasts don't have any kind of sense of self yet or sense of relationship. So you don't know to trust anything that they're saying.
Totally.
True.
You know?
Very
And going
true.
back to what you just said, I actually think was a pretty salient point that was just that you said. We kind of brushed over it, but that there's a lot of false information that comes out now, and I think from Bravo's standpoint, that's the one protection that they have, that you still have to see the show. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of shit that just comes out there, and that it's like you still have to watch. Because
Tommy, yes and no, though. That's what scares me about being so in this on a daily basis is that I used to agree with that. But now what I've come to realize with social media is that you can put out one post with like completely on Instagram with completely false information that you're like, I heard these ladies in Aspen were completely fighting. Dorit and Erica left on a private jet, and everybody will pick that post will blow up. It'll be like 100,000 likes. Everybody will pass it around, talk about it. And then you'll get a post 6 hours later, go, hey, that was incorrect information. They're actually still there. It was a fight, but they're fine. And that post won't do nearly as good.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you have
Right.
70% of the people still believing that initial information, and then they go spread that out. It's this weird thing that I never really believed until I really got into it. And you're like, you see it happen in real time.
it happened with me with when I had the trouble with Reza.
Oh,
You
yeah.
would see like this is not anything. You know what I mean? Like you'd see it out there on social, and for a while it all went down. Like I put myself, like I didn't say a word about it until it came on because I wanted to see what they were going to put on. But in that time that led up to it, so many different things came out. There was just
Oh, I remember.
And we would have been able to, we probably, because of the way things are now versus a few years back, it would be 4 years almost to be exact, we would have been able to handle it differently. But I thought it would be, since you were talking about never did you think a guy from Kansas
Yeah.
would ever be doing this for a living and doing it so well, would be a great time to let all the listeners know that you guys can find him on his podcast, So Bad It's Good, with Ryan Bailey. And maybe tell us a little bit about how this started for you.
Yeah, no,
How did you get into this?
I grew up in Kansas, moved to Arizona when I was in high school, and I started getting heavily into theater when I didn't know anybody. Drama club usually will take you in. That's like a play. Like they'll be like, you're a weirdo as well. Come in. And it was like as a freshman in high school, I gravitated towards that, and I always loved TV and film. Like TV, film, and music, anything pop culture. My favorite show growing up was Entertainment Tonight or Access Hollywood. I just was starved for anything media related. I would get the Entertainment Weeklies, the Us Weekly. I was so obsessed. And this is pre-internet. You kids listening at home, there used to be a thing called pre-internet where you didn't have a phone attached to your wrist. You didn't have any of this stuff. So everything came from magazines and TV and books. And I was just so fixated that there was a place called Hollywood. I would dream of going down Sunset Boulevard and the Tower Records. It was all just such a fairy tale in my head. I moved to Arizona, and then I was a decent actor, and I got a scholarship to college. I had a choice to go to NYU or ASU, and I chose ASU because of a girlfriend, Arizona State University. But
Wow.
it
Changed
was
the course of your life.
it really did, actually, because I could have been a theater actor, and I went there, and I met so many amazing people, but I met somebody that did extras casting in TV and film. And they said, why don't you come intern on your summers And I would come up to LA on my summers and I would work in TV, and I got to watch like ER episodes being filmed and Adam Sandler movies. And then I was able to cast myself in these things as like, you know, featured background roles. Because extra work is that, you know, you'd hire like 1,000 people to be background scenes and half of them are insane. You know, they're working for minimum wage and a cheese sandwich. And then you would have like
long
this,
hours too.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. 16 to 18 hours a day. And, you know, but I'm like 17, or I'm 18, you know, so then I got my Screen Actors Guild card from doing like featured extra work. And it was just a dream of being around those movie sets. And then my girlfriend.
And you got it.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, it really was living the dream. But I was like taking myself out of the acting. I was like, I'll just work behind the scenes. The girlfriend at the time pushed me to go to the Groundlings, where like Will Ferrell and all of those people. And I went through their program and I went to the final level right before you would have made the company. And I didn't make the company, but it taught me so much. But yeah, like I worked.
Yes.
I worked at an acting studio as an acting teacher and the office, one of the office managers for 13 years. I got let go during COVID. But during that time, like I was married. I was married for close to 10 years. And I was on The Office, How I Met Your Mother, Criminal Minds. Like I did like a really, you know, I was sort of successful compared to other actors out here, but it's a grind. It's like crab fishermen. You're just throwing out pots. You never get to pick the audition, you know, like, oh, I'll get the audition for a barista today. And I grew up like learning how to do real acting, you know, and you're just like, okay.
Thespian.
Yes. And I was like working a job where they would let me go on the audition, but it would take like 2.5 hours and I had to make that time up on the back end. So you're doing 12 hours days, just struggling, just trying to make things meet, but this is the dream. Now, on the other hand, like I was in a marriage where I still loved reality television. It wasn't her, it was me. From The Real World into Survivor and then into Bravo. I remember the first night Orange County premiered and I was like, this is something I'm gonna like. And you know, it's so weird because I'm that dude that like, I'm a big dude. Like I'm like, I should be into sports and I'm not. All my guy friends are like, you know, I'll hang out and watch sports games with them just to have camaraderie. Yeah. But I never got
But you didn't know what was going on.
But if you put a Housewives on, I'd be like, I'll tell you what Vicky needs to do. Vicky needs to tackle that girl. And then I'm like, I know everything. Yeah. So I would like gravitate towards my friends' girlfriends and why, you know, I would get in with them because I understood their language, but I just loved all of it. And then I got a divorce, or I started getting separated into a divorce about 6.5 years ago after a really long relationship. And I didn't know that there were people like me out there. I don't mean guys, but just people, the voraciousness of the Bravo fan base. Like I watched this just by myself. I wasn't on the internet that much, or, you know, I would make stupid jokes on Twitter, but not really reality show based. And I was introduced to like Facebook groups. I was introduced to Facebook groups that all they did all day long was talk about Housewives and Bravo and reality shows. And I'm like, you guys remember these iconic moments like I do? Yeah. And it was the thing that got me through my divorce because it opened up a whole new world of like friends, not in real life friends, but friends on the internet, which is now very common before we even went into the pandemic. And it gave me hope. And then people were like, you're really funny. You really have good takes on this stuff. Yes. But I didn't know what a good take was. I didn't know what a hot take was. And I had friends at podcasting, but I didn't think I could ever do it. And then I did a podcast about the Kardashians with a friend who I'd never watched the Kardashians. She was an expert, and it was like an expert, and I was the dummy, and that was really great. That ended, and then it took 6 months, and then somebody was like, you should do this by yourself. And I was like, I don't think I could ever. I don't think I could even talk for more than 10 minutes by myself. You see that that's not the case now. But it was like Danny Pellegrino and those guys I was friends. They said, why don't you just put yourself on tape and see if you can do it? And I did 15 minutes, and I was like, this isn't horrible. Yeah. And then I started it, and then it was great because I had a full-time job at the time, would do a podcast, but I was busting my ass. And this is pre-pandemic, about a couple months before the pandemic. And then the pandemic happened and I got let go from my job and I started going crazy because I didn't know, this had been so established podcasting because of all the amazing podcasters like Watch What Crappens and Danny. It was so established that the only way I felt I could break in was just to go, and I still feel this way, is to go buck wild. Like I would do 6-hour podcasts. I would be like, I grew up on Stern and stuff. I grew up on long form talk show radio. So I would do 3 guests. I would intersperse my parents. I would bring them on. I would do comedy bits, music bits. And during the pandemic, people would just be like 6 to 7 hours. Let's listen to it. And then that wasn't sustainable because Tuesday night I'd have a shitty computer and it would like break down at 4 a.m. when I was trying to process the audio because I would do everything. And then, then I switched to a daily podcast and it like led me to this point. But I still, like last night, I was up till 3:30 editing my show to come out today about Vanderpump Rules, and I take it seriously. It's my living. And like I tell Saiba and stuff like that, I'm like, it's not really even about the money to me. This is my dream. Like this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life if I'm lucky.
But you love doing it. So being up till 3 a.m. isn't work.
Oh, well, I mean, like last night when you're processing audio, you're like,
listen,
I remember
do all the editing too, so I
Yeah.
understand exactly what you do. But I'm doing something that I don't have a boss. No one's sitting there cracking a whip on me, and I'm doing something that I enjoy doing. And
it's also important to say things that we love can be hard. Things that we love can
but
be
they're worth it.
exhausting.
Yes. They pay in dividends,
Yes.
and it just always showed me all the classes I had went to, all the acting. It was like, that was great, but you never were in control, like I said, of what you got to audition for. This, for better or worse, I'm in control.
That's what I love
say.
about it.
Whatever stupid take I want, and like I tell the audience, these are just my takes. They usually turn out to be correct, but you have your own takes. You have whatever you want. These are just my opinions, and I have a format. I have like a place to go now every day, and I get to talk to some of the best people that I have a calling card now. Go, hey, would you like to be on a show? And we'll talk. And I've got to talk to some of my favorite people in life now through this podcast.
And one of the benefits of the podcast, unlike any other creative formula or format out there, is something that you also just said, which is key. You get support. You know what I mean? Like from other podcasters. They encourage you.
Oh my God.
Like that doesn't happen in acting.
Oh, dude, it did not
You know what
happen.
I mean?
It was
doesn't
so
happen in
competitive.
Yeah.
And this is like, I never say no to anybody. If somebody wants me to be on there, if I don't know, yes, yeah, of course. Like it's always those times, and I hate to keep making sports references because I don't like sports, but it's like how many times at bat,
Yep.
You want to get that practice. You want to say, I'll be good in any situation. Let me make this good, or let me try to make this good in any situation. And so, you really, that 10,000 hours theory of just doing it where it's become so natural to you. And it used to make me so nervous, and it's the one place where I feel comfortable in my life.
Face the fear.
Well, the thing I can't believe that you're a nervous person because
You see me. I've been a basket case around you. You saw me. Watch What I was sweating. I tore my knee at Watch What. Nobody knew I tore my ACL at Watch What Happens that night. And so when you saw me, I was just like dripping sweat because I was in so much pain.
Okay, so he's talking about a few nights ago. Well, what was it a few weeks ago?
It was like a month and a half. It was right before Scandoval happened.
It was
The
right
week before. Ariana was there too.
She sure was. And Tommy said that night to me, he said, "You're going to go even though it was torrential
Monsoon.
downpours."
It was Noah's Ark. Like people were like collecting animals.
Two by two.
No, it was really disgusting.
I couldn't believe.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it
there's
was-
gonna be nobody there, and I can't believe how many of them showed up. I really can't.
No, I mean that speaks to how amazing those dudes are.
Yeah.
Yes. Shout out to Ronnie and Chris.
And again, the loyalty that comes with it, like I've always talked about on the pods. There's such a different. It's such an intimate connection with the listener. It's not like radio. It's not like anything else. These people are tuning into you. Giving you a part of their life. There's a connection there. We had a conversation with one of our fans last week, one of our Patreon fans last week. She knew when our anniversary was. She knew when our kid's birthday was. And not on some crazy stalker type shit.
Yeah.
Just on a genuine interest in our life and seeing us flourish.
I've had both of them. I've had the soccer stuff, and I've had but like my parents' 50th anniversary was a couple years ago during the pandemic. We had over 300 listeners send them 50th anniversary cards. Yeah. Like my mom's going through stuff right now. And just yesterday, somebody sent my mom this beautiful teddy bear and like this beautiful, freight. And she was just like, look how lucky this, they really are blown away by how amazing the listeners are. Not just to me, but to them.
I have, like we talked about there, I have a nonprofit where I give books to kids, and all of those books come from the listeners. They come from the people that listen to our podcast. So again, like it's just, you can't measure it. You know what I mean? That's why I know that we're doing the right thing. And I'm sure you're doing the right thing in our life and in our right spot and time. I'm real grateful for all of them.
And the thing I was saying about, I can't believe you're a nervous person, because I love how you post these opinions. Like the second that Erica Jane, I'm just going to use her as an easy example, does something, everyone else except for Ryan is walking the line of keeping their mouth shut. And then he drops this meme, which is so exactly what people are thinking, like about Why is she wearing the earrings? Should she have kept the earrings? Why isn't she giving them back? Or anything like your commentary blows me away.
Well, it's cut and dry to me a lot of the times too. Like I think there's a real like easy right and wrong in a lot of situations. But I also say that I am so fallible in my own life. Like whenever I talk about any of these people, any of these ladies, any of these guys, I say I am the biggest loser out of all of these people because I am. But at the same time, I think there's like a real simple right and wrong. And I think
totally agree with you.
In this day and age, nobody will ever admit fault.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever. You stick to your story, and eventually you can make that story true in this day and age. And we see it on reality television more than ever. I mean, even this week when I was listening to this Howie Mandel interview with Tom Sandoval, Howie Mandel didn't do any research, had never seen the show Vanderpump Rules, and it was like this really amazing opportunity because it's so in the zeitgeist right now. And then he was on Billy Bush the next day because he was getting eviscerated by the Bravo fandom, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't need to do research. I'm a guy. He's a guy." And I'm like, "No, like why are you still standing up for yourself? Just take the L. Just say." It was still a good interview, but yeah, I should have prepared way more because there is so many fascinating questions that the audience that is tuning in for this would like to know. Never disrespect the audience.
Not just that, he had to know that this guy hadn't talked anywhere yet.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Forget about all the other research. Just know that. Just know that you don't know. This guy hasn't talked anywhere else, so you got to hit him with some hard-hitting questions. Well, it can't be like a friendly interview.
No, Tommy, that's what I said. Yeah, you have to have a little pushback.
Yes.
You can be respectful and champion this guy, but push back a little so people know it's the real deal. And the other thing I noticed, and you definitely will realize this, is that mainstream media or anybody like that's outside of the Bravo sphere, it's almost like they're shocked that we exist, that we care about this stuff, that this stuff is as popular as it is.
Yeah.
People, he's like, I had no idea. Got like some of the biggest numbers his podcast ever had, and now he's going to respect it.
Oh, for sure.
But we're like the
Not just
redheaded.
that, he's going to want to get other
Oh,
realities.
he was like, if anybody else wants to come on and school, but it's like we're the redheaded stepchild, and now you see the power that this audience, even in fiscally, this audience will pay to go to BravoCon. This audience will.
It's like the Super Bowl for them.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
The Sandoval of it all. We're gonna get into that today, right? We're gonna talk a little.
I'm down
bit
for
about
whatever, but it's male fragility, and I don't know if Tommy would. I don't know if Tommy's like up to date on this stuff, but he's another person that will not take the L of like you could have been having a midlife crisis, which is totally acceptable and happens to everybody. But having an 8-month relationship on top of a relationship that you were lying and sneaking around with most everybody, having then taking this person around friends and family in your hometown in St. Louis, it's like I have empathy, but to a degree that was really wrong, period. Like no matter how you cut it, it was wrong to have an 8-month affair that you are still in. And then this person, you had 8 months to know this stuff, and this person is catching up to it a month and a half ago. And of course, it's going to shatter them because he was lying about it. On this Mandel interview, he says, I'm not going to, he got her into therapy because he wanted the therapist to break up with her. He was like, I did couples therapy. Usually people go into couples therapy
to save the
to work on it.
relationship.
I was in couples therapy with my ex.
Yeah.
I didn't go in there to have the therapist break us up.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe we can salvage whatever this is. He did it. And so he goes, and the craziest thing was like, she started changing. She would like turn into this beautiful person. And he was like, unfortunately, I already decided I wanted to end it. And it was like,
God.
dude, like
Yeah.
she didn't even know when in therapy that he had a full relationship on the side.
Have you met him?
Many
Sandoval?
times.
Of course.
Dude,
He's got a very Jim Jones aspect to him. Like he thinks he's the, you know what I mean?
Well,
The
Tommy,
cat's
I gotta
meow.
tell you, I was licking that guy's balls up, and I thought he was the coolest because I thought, what a weird dude.
See,
I
know.
I go,
We know.
I do weird stuff. I go, I have a podcast. I'm like, I do weird stuff. Like he
We're
does
best
weird
friends.
stuff too. I
But
look
it's
up
not-
to that.
It's
you
not
know?
a matter of that. It's a matter of like, I've lived out in LA, and because you were in the acting field, and I worked a lot in the nightlife. And when you work in the nightlife in LA, they're all actors. They're all entertainers. They all want to be at that. So they all think there's an element of narcissism amongst all of them. And he thinks he's a star. And when you think you're a star and you're not a star, it's got to eat at you, especially when you said you get to that midlife point and you're doing these shows at the bar you own. You know what I mean? It's not like you're out doing tours like you think you are or you should be. And this other girl is a Kool-Aid drinker, dude. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
yeah, and
she's following
she's
around.
a reflection of what he
Rachel.
wants to see in himself.
Yes.
Rachel,
he's
yeah.
like,
Yes.
can you believe? He's like, and then I met her, and just she gave me like a new lease on
Yes.
life, and it's like,
Yes.
of course she did.
Yes.
I love
It's
he
like,
has a list.
oh, well, in my version of it, I do like imitate, and like there's a
Kinda does,
slight.
though.
Nobody
Yeah.
really catches it,
It's
but
there.
I extend the lisp a little bit. But no, I just think it's so ridiculous. Of course, somebody new that looks up to you like you're like king shit is going to be the best thing since sliced bread when you've been with somebody for 9 years and they know you inside and out and won't let you get away with stuff.
Yes.
What
Of
he
course, it's
did-
exciting.
Yes.
when he was on Howie Mandel's show, the way that he talked about on this podcast, on Howie's podcast, he didn't focus at all about the betrayal on Ariana. All he focused on was how he and Ariana's passion fire had started to fade after 10 years, which show me a relationship that is real and you live together and you have this, complicated real life together, and the sizzle doesn't kind of what you say come
Tommy,
off
would
the
you like to
stage.
speak to this?
Well,
Because he didn't say anything about betraying Ariana. All he focused on was that she was depressed.
Yes.
And I was
well,
depressed.
I
and how
think there's an
different we
element
were
of
during our
he can't
depression.
be, and I'm not sticking up for him, but I think there's an element of he can't be honest to the degree of like we're on a show, and we're like I don't want to wreck the show. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what he said. She goes, I asked her in therapy what she would do if we hypothetically broke up. And she said, I would leave the show. I would move away. I would delete. And he goes, and that's not fair. I've shared all my stuff on this show and you're just going to walk away. And I'm like, dude, this is her actual life. Your brain is so mush from being on 10 seasons of a show that you think she owes it to you to help the show. And then, but later on, he backtracks and he's like, I don't owe this show nothing. They're going to interrogate me, Lala and Sheena. No. And it's like, dude, you can't have it both ways. You want her to share things, but then you're not going to be interrogated for your own behavior. As a dude, I was even starting to get confused because I'm like, for somebody that said you were in therapy for a long time, I can't imagine a therapist letting you say half of the things that you're saying right now.
100%.
And as someone, and without throwing names out there, I've met people in this sphere where all of a sudden the show becomes more important than their real life relationships, their real life dealings with others.
Are you talking about Mercedes?
Hell no.
And I think that that's
I
where
should have
he's
been more
at.
that way,
I
in
think
fact.
that that's where he's at. He wants to be loved.
Oh,
He has
yeah.
that element where he wants to be.
That's
a
why
star,
this kills him.
Wants to
He
be killing him, killing him.
thought that people would, because he thought he was going to get away with this without being found out about Raquel.
Yes.
He was trying to structure the breakup so she never. But unfortunately, his phone dropped
Right.
out, and they found a sexy
Yes.
video on it, and then
Right.
she realized that the Raquel thing really was going on. He thought he was going to walk away, look like a hero because he was honest about his feelings, went to therapy, brought her to it, and then he was going to soft launch Raquel later on,
Yep.
way after the reunion, and he got busted.
Yep.
And now he just can't understand why 2 months ago people loved him,
Yep.
and now people are completely confused and betrayed by him.
Yep.
The last episode.
Great take. It's very true. It's
Very true. The last episode of VPR that aired, there was a slip that a lot of people might have caught. I definitely rewound it twice or 3 times to hear it
Butt
again.
slap or the Tom?
James.
Oh, yeah.
James
Yes.
Kennedy saying, "So you've hooked up with
You've
Tom."
hooked up with Peter, you've hooked up with Schwartz, you've hooked up with Tom.
Sandoval, yes.
Yeah, like well, he said Tom, but he said it in this weird way. I don't know exactly what that meant because Sandoval and Ariana were at that dinner table like 2 seats down. I don't know if James was just speaking facetiously because Sandoval was such a kiss ass to her. Like I
No.
don't know.
Do you know what I know?
What? Please.
Okay, so you know Patrick and Paul.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the dudes. Yeah, Jeff Lewis and
so
Sheena's wedding.
Patrick and Paul, who did Sheena's dress, they were in Cancun and they were in one of those corridors that led to an elevator where Tom and
Raquel.
Sandoval and Raquel were kissing, and there were no cameras around, and they saw it and they said it publicly. They did hook up, and so James.
But Sandoval was like, no, that you didn't see that. Like,
Well, when James basically named Sandoval as one of the 3 people and was open to Rachel about it. So it had happened, is what I'm saying. It had happened. She had already made out.
It had publicly happened to
No,
them.
They
amongst
they
them.
saw
It
they
had-
they saw this happen, but Ariana was not there and was not aware of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But they had told James in that trip, obviously, because he said Tom.
I don't think Patrick and Paul said anything until in real time. I don't think they said anything to anybody, but they saw it. But I think James, yes, sorry, it's so tangled. Yes, James Kennedy must have known about it, but not seen it as a 7-month long affair. You know, he just had seen like the hookup.
Oh, it blew me away. Like because I've hung out with those guys. I've hung out with Raquel. I've like you know I did not believe it. I was like nah no. I mean I was just with Ariana. We were there at Watch What Happens. We were talking that night about like the situation about Lala going on Watch What Happens Live and saying she wanted to be Ariana, have her be single next. She was telling me about that Tom wasn't happy with that, and I'm like weird. So even at that point, Tom was complaining that Lala went on Watch What Happens Live and said Ariana should be single and get away from Sandoval.
Because Sandoval
and he was in a
wants to
full-blown
control
relationship.
the
And he
narrative.
could have took the out.
Yes,
You know what
I was
I
like,
mean?
that was it. That was the thing.
But it goes back to what you said earlier.
Ego.
It's all about the ego.
What
dude.
about
he
when he
wanted
said-
it on his terms.
Yes.
You know what I
He
mean?
wanted
Yes.
control.
Yes.
But he also said we were already on Howie. We were broken up. It just wasn't public. Privately, Tom
He said
and Ari-
2 weeks before he had tried to break up with her, and then he goes, dude. And then she was like, you want to fertilize one of my eggs? And I'm like, you're crazy. I just said let's break. I'm like, yeah, that's so crazy. Somebody that actually wants to be with you is going to actually try to do whatever it takes to try to make this work.
Yes.
And he's like, it's crazy, man. And I'm like, no, that's what you do in a relationship. She didn't want you to leave. She wanted to stay in this relationship.
Absolutely. When the sorry, I forgot my thought again. What was my thought again? We were just talking about it. You were just talking about it.
Goldfish.
I know. I'm really bad. I know. Okay, I forgot. It'll come back.
Tom's a cheater.
Tom's a cheater. It's okay. It's too many thoughts.
It's
It's hard because I like to listen. I don't like to cut out. It's fine. It'll come back. Okay. So where else are we going with this? Are we talking about? Oh, I know what it was. What it was. Let's not forget Rachel also kissed Garcelle Bouveau's son in Vegas
Oliver.
this year.
And then Oliver turns out in this next episode, you find out that he was married at the time too, and he was cheating because Rachel gets a DM from Oliver's wife, and they have like, stepkid, all this stuff saying that, listen, you're like cheating with my husband. So Rachel's having one of the worst, terrible, bad years of her life. I mean, just cannot pick somebody that's not in a relationship. I mean, there's tons of single people out there. She could have picked one of those.
But how
people.
many single people are out there on reality television?
I don't
That's what
like
it comes
that she
down
said-
to. She's trying to be on TV.
But it's like I don't want to think of people as calculated like that because she comes off like truly like what Lala said, like a Bambi-eyed, not the bad word, but and her voice is like
I'll say it.
it's
No, she's dumb as she's dumb as a box of rocks.
Well, that's what she comes off
But
like.
that
Just
doesn't
nothing.
mean that she doesn't have
Have aspirations.
Yes, she's not enamored with all of this, and that's why she's just not making good decisions because she's not bright. Oh, he's on TV, I'll bang him. He's on TV, I'll bang him. You know what I mean?
But see, this is really cut and dry. It's like there's right and wrong in this world.
Yes.
Like I'm sorry, that's like you are doing something wrong, and I
Yes.
know Tom is the king doing something wrong person, but she did something wrong too. Like period.
For sure.
And the
Of
fact that
course.
like I do have empathy, but I'm like sorry, I'm not pulling my punches yet. I think this is
no.
really horrible behavior, and this shouldn't be encouraged. Like normal people don't do this to people.
Of
like
course. It's not an intelligent. You don't have to be intelligent to know that you're not supposed to fuck over your friends. And when she says to Lala in this episode, there's a lot worse things I could have done, and you see her mind drifting away.
yeah, she literally did one that day. She slept with
Exactly.
Sandoval at the hotel.
Yes, so she's not getting any passes about not being, quote, allegedly intelligent. You, Tommy, can say that she's dumb as a box of rocks, and that's your opinion.
No,
and
but
we
again,
hung out
that
with
has
her
nothing
and-
to do with. There's a lot of people on reality TV that ain't bright. It has
doesn't
nothing
have
She
to
also
do with
might
it.
be book smart, but she also may be really dumb in how she handles interpersonal relationships
Yeah.
and her codependency issues on men.
Yes.
Right. And I know we're all reading that she's in rehab, which also does nothing for me.
Can I give you a little? I hate to, as a grown man to say tea.
Give me
I
the
hate
tea,
I hate
honey.
tea. I hate gaslighting. I hate all
Oh my
these
God.
flipping words. I hate word and I now just because I primarily have a female base, I'm like, you guys want to get some hot tea.
Tea I accept
Scorching
because
hot.
it's become part of that lexicon, but the gaslight,
Wait, we overuse it. We use it incorrectly. Everything's a gaslight.
Oh, he's gaslighting. She does it to me all
By the way, when you sell a house
gaslighting.
for the agency, you're like, this has great gaslighting in here. Beautiful windows. A lot of gaslighting comes in.
Yeah.
No, is that I got word today from somebody very close to the source is that she's. ET released a statement that Raquel or Rachel went to a mental health center, but it's actually a wellness retreat.
Oh.
And Tom Sandoval will be going there next week. But it's like something like Miraval is very different than an inpatient, so while I champion her getting any help she needs or getting away, but I also champion her and Tom not being on reality TV for a while and trying to come down to earth if this relationship matters at all to them. But I also think it's very interesting to put out these kind of blanket PR things that are really do pull at the heartstrings, because I truly believe everybody cares about everybody's mental health, even if they've done something wrong. But a wellness retreat is very different than a rehab facility.
But that's also
you and I can go to a wellness retreat for the weekend and take a lot of turmeric and green juice.
Get colonics. I'll be like, I just passed some really bad stuff.
That's
out of
also
me.
become a major touchstone to the mental health aspect. That that you could just, if I say that,
I say mental health, you have to back off.
You have to back off. You have to relax. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, you're right. So it's to absolve them of things.
If they could only go off of reality TV for a couple of years. Did you notice that in the Howie interview, Sandoval said he couldn't afford to leave the house because he didn't have the money to stay somewhere else. He said
he didn't have any friends that could do it. He couldn't afford. I'm like, go live with your buddy Schwartz, your best friend.
But let's call aren't you spending so much money on that 9-piece orchestra band
he pays for the whole band?
He pays for their food. He pays for their clothes.
He's just, in his mind, he's a star.
Dude, have you seen you've seen Boogie Nights, right?
Yes.
The movie Boogie Nights. It reminds me of Mark Wahlberg, top porn star, but then he decides he wants to start a band.
Yes.
And he's like, we will rock you. And he's like, let's put this down. Like Tom is in that living out his fantasy. Like he's like, and to me, it was really fun when I thought this dude was completely a committed dude, wasn't a creep, wasn't like chasing women. I really bought into that. At BravoCon, I was like partying my balls off. Like I was like, it was literally fun to hear cover songs when you actually believe in the person. That magic gets taken away. No offense to the band who I know are professional musicians, but that magic kind of disappears when I'm like, you just a creep? Like
that's why when Tommy would say he thought he was such a big star, I said, look, if that's the worst thing you could say about him, it's not that bad, because it's okay to be self-promotional. That's something
we talked about that before the thing. I wish I could believe in myself as much as Tom Sandoval. Are you kidding me?
Exactly.
Like, but I do sometimes think about this. Do you ever I'm like, okay, well, it's great that I'm not super confident and cocky, because maybe I would be creeping on women as much as maybe I would be a bad person. Maybe like my insecurity has prevented me from doing some of the things that men always seem to get themselves trapped in. That's true. These kind of because you see it time and time again. There's and I have like I said, a primarily female audience, and they'll show I don't know if we're allowed to use strong language on the show, but it's they laugh. They're like, oh yeah, I've got like a folder of dick pics. Oh yeah, totally common, totally. And I'm like, I've never sent a dick pic in my. Are you kidding me? And I'm just like, it doesn't have to be the right angle, the right gaslighting in there, But it's so commonplace. They're like, oh yeah, if a dude hits me up in a DM, it's immediate like dick pics, the second one. And I'm like,
it's like the third text.
And I'm just like, what? Are you kidding me? Are they going to jail? They're like, no, this is how humanity works.
But I also believe
I think he'll be okay.
I think it was a perfect storm too. Like he found the perfect person with this girl, because again, he was looking for that worship. He was looking for, that's not going to happen with just any other girl that you meet. Even if you're cheating or whatever, there's going to be he found the girl that was willing to follow him around like a fool.
And in his head, he goes, oh, she's on the show too?
Yep.
We could be eventually a power couple like me and Ariana were.
But I'm the lead.
Yeah, I get to, and I think we had blown his ego up so much because I think Ariana kind of made us look at him in a different way, separating him from Jackson Schwartz on VPR of wow, what a really solid stand-up guy that's so in love with Ariana. And we bought into that. And I think he didn't realize that part of that was the Ariana relationship. He thinks it was just me. I'm amazing. They see how amazing I am.
That's one of the pitfalls to me of reality television, because at least when you're talking acting, music, or those people have talent, right? They you could see the talent, where reality people, they're just normal people. So sometimes they get real full heads to think that they're better than the other people. You know what I mean? It's like,
Well, I think talent on reality TV is chosen because we're quippy or interesting, or we are comfortable in front of a camera,
all that,
relatable, all of those things. But it's not a skill that we went to school for, like real
Could you
actors.
imagine?
but we personally,
They will
probably
teach that
couldn't.
someday at USC or
They
something.
we
probably
personally
will.
know
They probably
someone that
will.
was on reality television, without dropping names, that when a fan wanted to take pictures, said that they come to me, I don't go to them. And when you get into that type of mindset, that's when it's, you're not, you know what I mean? You're not special, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Just like if a guy wants to, if you're like single and a guy wants to talk to you and they'll point at you and tell you to come over here with their finger, I'm like, I would never get up and come and walk over to you. If I was interested in you and thought you were attractive, you already lost your chance.
Yeah, for sure.
That's just a cocky ego. Nobody wants any of it. One more thing I noticed last night in the VPR episode was that Tom Schwartz said in his interview that had lost his mojo, his self-confidence, and his fire inside. And the kiss with Raquel gave it back to him, which also Sandoval said, talking to Howie, that they had lost this something inside until
She's got the
she
magic
came
kiss.
along. Yeah. Jesus Christ, it's bullshit. It is just like you said, the guy that likes to control a girl.
But Schwartz, even the time, this is funny. Schwartz goes, he goes, I stopped feeling, he goes, I just haven't felt sexy in the longest time. And like, I just felt so not desired. I'm like, I've never felt sexy, you loser. What are you talking? Like, men aren't supposed to go around feeling sexy. Like, no offense, all the men wanting to feel sexy, but it's like, we're like, what? You've not felt desired? Like, boo-hoo. Are you kidding me?
And
You made a
therefore,
whole living out of
you should
reality
go where?
television. You don't feel desired? You don't feel sexy? Like, dude,
Exactly.
it cracks me up. Like, we are so fragile. Like, the male ego is one of the most fragile egos, and we say, women are emotional and all that stuff, but it's so we don't even hear ourselves talk sometimes.
For sure.
It's crazy.